Finally home, Veronica shut the front door, placed a bag of groceries on the low nightstand, and savored the serene silence enveloping her. It was such a pleasure to return to an empty apartment after work, to have a few hours all to herself. Yesterday, Veronica had sent her daughter Varia and her grandmother off to Turkey. Let the girls enjoy some sunshine in the midst of winter. Her husband had gone straight from work to visit his parents and stayed overnight. Veronica knew how to treasure these rare moments of solitude and turn them into a mini vacation. No more diets. She spread out a platter of cheese, salted red fish, grapes, berries, and uncorked a bottle of good wine. And, of course, a bucket of pistachio ice cream. Nika arranged the food on the table and pondered the most difficult decision: whether to cook a light dinner or simply boil a package of king prawns and pair it with a glass of light beer. Her deep contemplation was interrupted by a phone call. Glancing at the screen, Nika grimaced. When would Karina understand that she could be quite annoying? "Hi there, am I interrupting?" Karina didn't wait for an answer. "Listen, I wanted to ask you, has Ludka found someone after her divorce?" "Karin, it's only been 2 months since her divorce, and you're already seeking more gossip," Veronica curtly responded to the nosy inquiry. "Yes, of course. And are you and Boris doing okay, I hope?" Karina's voice held sympathetic tones. "You can't," Nika grinned. "Karina, I just came back from work, and I'm really tired." "Thank God you're okay." Karina's voice became husky. "I can't help it. I saw them together yesterday, and I couldn't sleep all night." "Who did you see?" Nika didn't understand. "You're Boris with Ludmila," Karina exclaimed. "You know Ludka and I work in the same building, but different offices. Yesterday, I was going to have lunch at the cafe, and as I stepped out, Ludka passed by. I called out to her, but she didn't even hear me. She rushed to her car, got in, and zoomed away. She was the only one we saw." "What does Boris have to do with it?" Nika was puzzled. "Well, it was your car," Karina explained. "I recognized it immediately. The color was quite distinctive. It was plum. And when I saw Boris behind the wheel, I knew something was amiss. First of all, it's Boris, not Boriska. Is he a farm animal or something?" Veronica controlled her anger. "Secondly, yesterday my husband was taking my best friend Mila to the dentist. Is that a crime?" There was silence on the phone. Then Karina let out a strange sigh, almost like a quack, and reluctantly agreed, "No, it's not a crime when close people help each other. Thank God. I accidentally thought the divorcee had stolen a good man from her closest friend." "Thank you for your concern. Goodbye." Veronica swiftly ended the conversation and finally took a deep breath. What the hell was going on? Of course, she couldn't let Karina revel in her suspicions, so she lied about the dentist. But the truth remained. Boris was secretly seeing her friend, practically her sister, behind his wife's back. The important thing was to calm down. Veronica knew firsthand the destructive power of jealousy. In the early years of her marriage, she constantly suspected Boris of infidelity. If he so much as glanced in the direction of another woman, Nika would instantly lose her composure and spiral into madness. In a restaurant, during a birthday celebration for their friend Mela, Veronica noticed her husband, Boris, gazing fondly at an unfamiliar woman. The presence of alcohol intensified her suspicions, and Veronica confronted her husband in a hushed, ominous tone, causing a scene. Overwhelmed with emotions, she fled the scene, crying, and rushed into the corridor. Concerned about her friend, Mila followed Veronica, followed by the rest of the guests who tried to console her. The memory of that night haunted Veronica for a long time, as it was a disgraceful display she would rather forget. When they arrived home, Boris surprised Veronica with his composed demeanor. Instead of shouting, swearing, or threatening divorce, he calmly and firmly expressed his feelings. "I had almost come to accept the fact that you never learned to trust me, but why would you ruin the evening for strangers? It was supposed to be a celebration for our close friend Mila. Yet instead of congratulating her, the guests had to console you. It's like a tragedy straight out of Othello, but with unnecessary drama. I am tired of your baseless jealousy, so let this be the last time you create such a spectacle. Nika, feeling the urge to justify herself, glanced at her husband and bit her tongue. Boris, who was usually good-natured, appeared distant, almost like a stranger, as he looked at her with a tired, extinguished gaze. Veronica felt immense shame and vowed never to upset her beloved husband with groundless suspicions. Truthfully, Boris had never given her a genuine reason to be jealous. He never hid his phone or his laptop passwords from her. For 2 years, they lived blissfully, like characters in a fairy tale, until an unexpected event shattered the crystal casket of trust in an instant. Veronica felt the familiar bitterness rising in her throat. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and dialed her mother-in-law's number. "Good evening, Anna Sergeyevna. Thank you. Varenka is doing well. Is Borya far away? I haven't been able to reach him on his phone. Maybe it ran out of battery?" "Hello," came her husband's calm voice through the phone after a minute. "My phone is working fine. What's wrong?" Veronica muttered softly, "Nothing is wrong. I just missed you." "Really?" Boris chuckled incredulously. "And here I thought that awful smell in the apartment was coming from your sea creatures. Are you okay, sunshine? Do you want me to come over?" His affectionate and slightly teasing tone warmed Veronica's heart. No, stay with your parents," Veronica replied, feeling guilty. "I wanted to talk to Milka, but I haven't been able to reach her for the past 3 days. I'm worried that something might have happened." "There's nothing wrong with Milka," Boris reassured her lightly. "I saw her yesterday. She wanted to see the apartment she inherited from her grandmother." "Why?" Veronica asked, sounding puzzled. "To assess the situation, plan the necessary repairs, and calculate the costs," Boris explained. "My company will handle all of that. Besides, you'll get a discount since she's your friend." As Boris delved into the details, Nika found herself unexpectedly fascinated by the discussion of someone else's home repairs. Nevertheless, after the conversation with her husband, Veronica immediately called Milka. "It was time to compare notes, gentlemen." "Hey, honey. I haven't heard from you in 3 days," Veronica greeted her. "Hi. I was just about to call you," Milka replied cheerfully. "I sent Sergei to spend the weekend with her ex-husband, and I already miss him. Can you imagine? You never know the joy of long-awaited freedom. I'm alone too." Borya went to visit his parents. Mila didn't react much to this message. The friends engaged in conversation for some time, and Veronica cautiously initiated a clandestine inquiry. "I keep forgetting to ask, are you planning to sell your grandmother's apartment or rent it out to tenants?" Veronica inquired. "Rent, of course. Why sell?" Ludmila replied. "Sergei will grow up, get married, and there's already an apartment in a good area. But I won't let anyone in until spring. I need to get the place in decent shape. Boris was here yesterday, and fixing it up is going to cost a lot of money." "Did you see Boris yesterday?" Nika expressed surprise. "He didn't tell you? Probably assumed I already informed you," Ludmila chuckled. As Nika conversed with her friend, a sense of unease crept into her thoughts. A disconcerting inner voice whispered to her, "You took your time with the report." Nonetheless, Nika continued the conversation. "Today I had Svetka visiting," Ludmila continued, unaware of her friend's misgivings. "She taught me how to make this amazing cake. It tastes fabulous. Do you want me to write down the recipe?" "Just tell me, I'll remember it," Veronica replied. Engrossed in her conversation with her friend, Nika, now completely at ease, hurried to Boris's office to commit the original recipe to memory. She had a sheet of paper ready and spent a considerable amount of time searching her desk for a pen. As she rummaged through the drawers, she came across a small branded bag from a jewelry store. Curiosity piqued, she took out a white velvet box. Inside were gold earrings with a green stone, a remarkably beautiful piece. Although Nika wasn't particularly fond of colored stones, she couldn't help but fall in love with the exquisite jewelry. Boris was quite the schemer. Perhaps that's why he and Ludmila met, to consult about a gift. Nika assumed, her impatience growing. Without delay, she tried on the earrings in front of a mirror, adjusting her hair. The stone caught the light and sparkled. Was it truly an emerald? Boris must have gone mad. Why would he spend so much money without a reason? Come to think of it, there really was no occasion. New Year's Eve had passed, and March Day was still far away. Could it be that he wanted to surprise his wife on Valentine's Day? No, she couldn't wait until February. Maybe it wasn't intended for me at all, Nika jestingly thought to herself, placing the box of earrings back into the bag. It reminded her of a scene from a movie where the wife rejoiced upon accidentally discovering a gift, only to realize it was meant for a mistress. What was the name of that movie? Real Love, wasn't it? A beautiful and romantic film that Veronica was planning to watch. Fluttering like a butterfly, Nika hurried to the kitchen to prepare a light dinner and pour herself a glass of wine. The following day, Boris returned home with gifts from his parents. Veronica was delighted to receive cherry jam and currant jam from her mother-in-law. She was in a fantastic mood all morning, relishing the fact that it was Saturday and she had no work to attend to. Opening the window, she allowed the crisp, invigorating winter air to fill the room. Outside, the day was dazzling with winter's splendor. Nika decided to embark on a thorough cleaning spree. She enthusiastically scrubbed the stove, sink, and bathtub. Infectious with his wife's zeal, Boris also grabbed a cloth and then a vacuum cleaner. Together, their four hands swiftly brought a shine to the entire apartment. Boris enjoyed his lunch and left for a meeting with a potential client. Veronica felt a slight disappointment. There were no hints or cryptic looks from Boris. How could that be? After all, who arranges surprises in broad daylight, especially after cleaning the toilet? Deciding to pamper herself, Nika decided to prepare a couple of gourmet dishes for dinner, looking forward to a magical evening. She hummed a song, feeling the urge to share her joy with someone. I must send my mother a picture of the earrings while Boris isn't around, she thought. Rushing into the study, Veronica noisily pulled open a desk drawer, only to be met with confusion. The jewelry was nowhere to be found. There was no beautiful branded bag, no earrings with a green stone, and no velvet box. The sunlight streaming through the window quickly faded away, casting a somber atmosphere in the room. Nika's strength abandoned her, and she collapsed onto the rug, gasping for breath as if a rigid hand had clutched her throat. The front door lock clicked, signaling Boris' return. Calm down, Veronica urged herself, realizing the numerous mistakes she had made in the heat of the moment. We need to sort things out. With an effort, she rose from the floor and headed to prepare her husband some gourmet meals. A heavy tension hung in the air during dinner, enveloping Veronica like a suffocating swamp. However, Boris seemed oblivious to the gloomy atmosphere and his wife's altered mood. Excitedly, he inquired about the beautifully set table, hardly waiting for an answer before launching into a spirited account of a lucrative order he had secured. Veronica felt a wave of nausea rising within her. She managed to force down a few spoonfuls of salad, but her mind resembled an abandoned attic with shattered windows. Thoughts, each more troubling than the last, darted aimlessly from all directions, like stray cats. He didn't attend any meeting. He went to see his mistress. Maybe we should call Milka. She might have noticed something suspicious 2 days ago. Who should I contact? Foolish woman? Perhaps he took Milka's precious earrings. What should I do? How can I ask? Nika gazed at her husband, his attractive yet deceitful and alien face. Boris, catching her eye, smiled warmly. Darling, the fish is incredible. This client is a gold mine. It's not just a house, it's practically a mansion. The company will earn a fortune from the renovations. By the way, we can trade in your old car for a decent one. Shall we have some tea? What? Nika snapped out of her reverie. Tea? You just had strawberries and cream. Now you want pastries? I'm sorry, I didn't have time to bake scones for dinner. I meant the usual cookies or muffins from the store, Boris replied, surprised. He couldn't resist adding, as if you spend all day baking. I work too, you know, Nika exclaimed, rising to her feet. Or do you imply that I can't handle dough? What about the cinnamon pretzels? Forget how they taste, Boris chuckled amiably. Nikush, when have I ever made you work in the kitchen? I know you're overwhelmed with your studies. I can see that. I may not be the best homemaker, but you haven't accomplished much either. What are you trying to say? Where are my earrings? Veronica screamed silently, but voiced entirely different words. For 2 months now, you haven't managed to hang a shelf in the room, she retorted, her words laced with hurt. You should have called a handyman, Boris muttered defensively. I don't have a drill. I'll buy one and hang your shelf. Empty words, just empty words, Nika said. By the way, who said that? Is that from a movie? Boris asked, bewildered. Unfortunately, neither Terminator nor Spider-Man said it. Don't take me for a fool, her husband fumed, growing angrier. Even Harry Potter never uttered those words, his wife smirked bitterly. It was Hamlet, Shakespeare. You're the philologist, and I have a degree in construction. Who reads Shakespeare these days? You should, at the very least, read some Russian classics once in a while. Start with Oblomov. There are many interesting things about your fellow couch potato. F***Q, sunshine. Boris erupted, leaping up from the table. F***Q. He stormed into the hallway, snatched his winter coat from the rack, and slammed the door behind him with a deafening bang. He left on his own. Veronica belatedly shouted after him, collapsing into tears. Tears streamed down her face as she frantically dialed her mother's number in Turkey. He really was at a business meeting, Irina Petrovna reassured her daughter. Varia and I just spoke to him through video chat at that exact time. Don't doubt it for a second. You always defend your beloved Borenka, Nika replied, her voice filled with a mixture of frustration and sadness. But why did he take the earrings? Nika exclaimed in Russian. I'm telling you, the jewelry is gone. He took them to keep them safe, her mother replied, undisturbed. Sorry, my dear, but you often pry into matters that are not your concern, and Boria knows it well. Then why didn't he give me the earrings during dinner? Nika sobbed, her voice filled with disappointment. You yourself said there was no reason for a gift, her mother replied calmly. Maybe he had already planned a surprise for Valentine's Day. He had some extra money, so he bought them. Either ask your husband directly or stop torturing yourself. Jealousy truly is a green-eyed monster. Who says that? Nika asked, wiping away her tears. It's Shakespeare, my poor philologist. It's a shame not to know that, her mother replied sternly. Don't lie to me, Veronica. By the time Boris arrived home, his wife had managed to calm herself down. However, a burning sense of guilt still ate away at her. Nika decided to apologize by baking cinnamon pretzels. Boris entered the kitchen and placed a heavy, large box on the table. It's a drill, he said. With the money I spent on it, you could have hired a dozen handymen. I'll put up the shelf tomorrow if you don't mind. I don't want to disturb the neighbors Saturday night. Whatever you say, my love, Nika replied meekly, narrowing her eyes. Tomorrow, feel free to make all the noise you want. How about some tea and pretzels? On Sunday, Nika was awakened by the sound of a drill. Her husband was installing a shelf in their daughter's room. Why is he up so early making that noise? Nika groggily stretched and glanced at her watch. Wow, it's already 11 o'clock. I had such a good night's sleep. I'll go get a cup of coffee. Nika put on her bathrobe and slipped her feet into fluffy slippers. The irritating sound from the other side of the wall subsided. In the hallway, she overheard her husband talking on the phone. I'd love to, but only in the afternoon, okay? I have some accounts to sort out, and I'll soon be buried in paperwork. At 4:00 p.m. That works great. Well, kisses. I'll see you later. Nika smiled as she peeked into her daughter's room. Good morning. Going back to work on your day off? I'll only be gone for an hour, Nikush. You won't even notice, Boris replied. I'll put away the tools while you admire the shelf. He tenderly kissed his wife on the nose and left. As soon as her husband rummaged in the closet with his iron, Nika immediately seized his phone, seeking proof. Boris had received a call from Milka just a minute ago. Everything before her eyes blurred. How could it be? How could it be? When Boris returned to the room, Veronica had made up her mind. She would confront these traitors and catch them red-handed. Nika could forgive many things, but not betrayal and humiliation. She would pull out her friend's hair and file for divorce. Suddenly, an image of herself as a lonely, gray-haired woman, longing for her beloved daughter in her adult life flashed in her mind. Nonsense. Nika dismissed the thought with a shake of her head. A lovely shelf, my love, she said, a sweet smile playing on her lips. Have you had breakfast yet? At the appointed time, Nika was fully alert, prepared for what was to come. When she ran into her husband, Boris, in the hallway, he was taken aback. Where are you going? He asked, fastening his jacket. I'm going to the store, Veronica replied, taking a nondescript gray down jacket from the closet and pulling a mouse-colored cap over her head. I'm running low on shampoo and toothpaste. Boris offered her a ride at the entrance. Want a lift? Are you kidding? It's just a few steps to the supermarket, she declined. The couple bid each other farewell and went their separate ways. Nika waited behind a pole until her husband's car left the parking lot, and then hurriedly made her way to her old Mazda. Tracking her husband proved to be more challenging than expected. She couldn't afford to lose sight of his Toyota, but getting too close was risky. If Boris accidentally spotted her old lady, all of Nika's plans would crumble. She cursed herself for choosing such a bright red car. She felt foolish wearing inconspicuous gray clothing and a hat while driving around town in a vehicle as conspicuous as a raging tomato. Even if she had put on makeup and glued on a mustache, Boris might still notice her. In the heat of the moment, Veronica nearly gave herself away when Boris's car stopped near the subway station. Startled, she jerked her red Mazda into an empty parking spot. It didn't take long for Milka to appear from the underpass, dressed in a new short fur coat and fashionable high-heeled boots. Nika silently wished ill upon her rival, feeling a surge of anger. Mila, seemingly noticing Boris, flashed a foolish smile and playfully made her way towards his car. The surveillance continued. The next destination was the jewelry store. Did the earrings not satisfy our fickle girl, or did the princess demand yet another piece of jewelry? Veronica anxiously waited for the couple to exit the store. Finally, the traders emerged from the store and walked amiably towards Boris's Toyota. Mila held an open velvet box, unable to tear her eyes away from its contents. Oh, how Nika despised her. Misfortune struck Nika from an unexpected angle. As she approached a traffic light at the crossroads, a large van suddenly appeared and completely obstructed her view of Boris's car. When the light turned green, Veronica had no idea which direction Boris had taken. However, her friend's ex-husband had taken their son to his place for a few days, so the birds had flown into Milka's empty apartment. It wouldn't be long before they were caught. Winter days were short. When the red Mazda pulled up in front of Mila's house, right under her windows, darkness had already fallen. Illuminated curtains revealed blurry silhouettes dancing within. The feverish excitement and anticipation had dissipated, replaced by tears streaming down Nika's cheeks. What was she to do in such a vile and humiliating situation? Burst into the apartment and confront her friend and husband? Turn Milka into a bald mannequin and Boris into a eunuch with one swift action? Or should she go home, pack their belongings in suitcases, and leave them in the hallway? A futile attempt to salvage her dignity? Veronica had no fear of appearing scandalous. She would have gladly wreaked havoc on Milka's cozy apartment if not for her overwhelming fear and pain. It was simply terrifying and heartbreaking to witness it all firsthand. The lights in Milka's bedroom went out. Nika ceased rationalizing and leaped out of her car. She sprinted up to the fourth floor and began pounding furiously on the door. "Nika, what's going on?" a startled Mila asked, clutching her silk robe and blocking the doorway. "Something happened with your daughter?" "Get out of my way." Veronica pushed Lyudmila aside without ceremony and headed straight for the bedroom. "Nika, are you out of your mind?" her friend followed in a hurry. "You're going into the room with your shoes on? What's happening?" "You'll find out," the jealous woman ominously promised as she swung open the bedroom door and froze in place. On the bed, a peculiar man sat with his shirt undone, appearing somewhat dazed. What a dreadful nightmare! "Hello," Veronica greeted him politely, feeling ashamed as she swiftly maneuvered past Mila and hurried out of the apartment. However, on the staircase, an angry voice pierced through her back. "You foolish lunatic! Why did you come here?" Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the car, Nika berated herself relentlessly. How shameful! Why didn't she consider that Boris Toyota wasn't parked in Milka's yard? Suppose he went upstairs with Lyudmila to her apartment, but where was the car? Did she keep it hidden away in her pocket? So it wasn't Milka. Then who was it? Nika shouldn't have rushed away from her friend so hastily. She should have inquired why she accompanied Boris to the jewelry store. Does Mila truly know about her husband's infidelities? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Upon reaching home, Veronica burst into the living room, still fully clothed, and appeared before her husband in a disheveled state. Breathing heavily and perspiring, she wore an old down jacket and an unsightly hat. "The epitome of elegance," Boris chuckled. "Where were you wandering, my love? I've been waiting. So how do you like everything?" The room was bathed in soft, muted lighting, accompanied by gentle background music. On a low table set for two, there sat a bottle of her favorite wine, cheese, fruit, and a white velvet box. Goodness, she felt like a complete fool. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted off Nika's shoulders. Discarding her garments on the floor, she approached the table. "Boris, this is a surprise, isn't it?" "Thank you, my dear," Veronica exclaimed, seizing the velvet case. "What? Earrings made of white gold adorned with transparent, glistening stones?" She was taken aback. "These are different earrings," the wife uttered grimly. "Of course they are," Boris replied, failing to grasp the meaning of her words, his cheerfulness unyielding. "Mila assured me that you'd love them." "What does she have to do with it?" Veronica asked, bewildered. "She chose them. When we visited her grandmother's apartment, I mentioned wanting to buy you some jewelry," her husband explained. "It's a long story without any grand occasions. Mila recalled that you had longed for earrings. So I bought a lovely pair with emeralds. I intended to give them to you on Saturday." "Why didn't you?" "Sweetheart, listen to me first. While I was at my parents' place on Friday, Mila and I spoke on the phone, and I sent her a picture of the earrings. She was outraged. She said you despise yellow gold and colored stones, believing they don't suit you. Hence, we decided to go to the store today and exchange the jewelry together. Mila personally picked these out. See how splendid they turned out." "They're beautiful," Veronica whispered, tears welling up in her throat. "These are the most exquisite earrings in the world," she kissed her husband. "Boris, pour me some wine. Before that, call Mila. She was deeply concerned about whether you would approve of her choice or not. Reassure your dearest friend." "I don't think my dear friend wants to hear from me at the moment," she blurted out without thinking. Boris scrutinized her guilt-ridden face intently. "Nikusha, have you done something wrong? Tell me." And Veronica, blushing, confessed all of her husband's transgressions. To her astonishment, Boris didn't get angry. He looked at her with tenderness and compassion. Silly girl, come here. Her husband pulled Nika towards him, planting a kiss on the top of her head. Instead of merely asking me about the earrings, you subjected yourself to 3 days of torment. Would it have been so difficult to just ask? Jealousy in excessive measure. Yes, jealousy is a dreadful thing. It consumes a person entirely. The green-eyed monster, Veronica recalled. That's what my mother called jealousy. My mother-in-law was right. She didn't say that. Then who did? Oh my God. Nika shook her head. It was Shakespeare. Boris, what am I to do? It's shameful not to know.